Hello, I am Laila AlJaami, a student at the Department of English Language and Literature at the University of Bahrain. Welcome to our advanced grammar series. So, today's lesson is going to be about reporting statements and questions. We'll start with reporting statements. So, in formal uses, we usually include that after reporting verbs when we report a statement, such as, he said that he would marry her only if she mended her ways. A spokesman for the USR responded that it was abnormal. So you notice that we include that after the reporting verb, which is said and responded. However, in informal uses, we often omit that. For example, he said he might meet me tomorrow. He mentioned it was a bad idea. Okay, moving on to the next slide, I'm going to explain certain verbs which describe certain things, in which we usually include that after the verb. Okay. For example, the first one is going to be verbs which describe the speaker's intention, such as, the servant complained that she has been treated cruelly, or she denied that she was at the crime scene when it happened. Okay. The second one would be the manner verbs which describe the manner of speaking. For example, Fahad whispered that he loved her deeply. I could hear people murmuring that the rumor was true. So here that comes after verbs which describe manner of speaking. That means verbs which or how am I saying the sentence? Okay, am I whispering? Am I shouting? So the third one would be phrasal verbs. The manager checked out that all employees are working well. The girl figured out that there is no way out from the house. So you see, the phrasal verbs here are checked out and figured out. The last one is when we include other information between the reporting verb and that clause. For example, the knights knew when they saw the enemy that they were going to lose the battle. The other information used here is when they saw the enemy. So it is between the reporting verb knew and that clause. Second example, the doctor told his patient that he had cancer. Okay, the other information here is his patient. Moving on to the next slide. Of course, we can use nouns such as announcement and response before that clause, which of course contains indirect speech. Okay. We usually include that after these nouns. For example, it was Philippa who made the announcement that she was taking an early flight back home. His response that he resigned filled her with anger and pain. Okay. Also, we can report statements by using a noun with be and a that clause containing indirect speech. For example, his only concern was that the customer would not be satisfied. Her response to the issue about the son was an indication that she could be ready to break from the past. Okay. Other nouns used like this. For example, argument, claim, comment, explanation, and report. Okay. Now we move on to reporting questions. We begin reported questions with first WH words. For example, who wrote this novel? We change it to be indirect. She asked who wrote that novel. Okay. Why did she do this? Of course, this is direct. If we want to change it to indirect, it becomes he asked why she did this. The second point is that we begin reporting, we begin reported questions or indirect questions with if or whether. For example, does he have the knowledge or not? Becomes she wanted to know if he had the knowledge or not, or she wanted to know whether he had the knowledge or not. Now, with subject before the verb and no question mark, we form indirect questions. Okay, with this type. For example, where is my bag? It becomes I asked where my bag was, not I asked where was my bag, because if you make it this way, it would still be a direct with the question mark. It would still be a direct question. Okay. Also, another point is that we do not change the word order when WH word is the subject of the question. For example, who has my bag? Okay, it would be I asked who had my bag, not I asked who the keys had. Of course, we cannot change the order. Okay, we can report some WH questions with should about the right thing to do by using an infinitive. For example, how can I deal with angry patients? This is direct. When we want to make it indirect, we say, I asked how to deal with angry patients. You can notice that we use the infinitive to. And you should keep in mind that why, of course, is a WH word, but it is not used in this way. We say, I asked her why I must be there, but we cannot say, I asked her why to be there. We cannot use an infinitive with why. We begin indirect yes or no questions with if or whether. We can use both. If or whether. For example, are you a writer? Becomes I asked if she was a writer, or we can also say I asked whether she was a writer. Not I asked if was she a writer. Pay attention to the order here. Okay, so we use whether after a proposition, but not if, because there are some cases that we cannot use if. Okay, we must use whether. One of these cases is when it comes after a proposition. For example, wasn't he allowed to travel? It becomes she asked about whether he was allowed to travel. Okay. The second case would be before an infinitive. We can't use an if. Can I wait for him in the garden? It becomes she asked whether to wait for him in the garden. Not she asked if to wait for him in the garden. Third case would be after the verb question, which is shown in the example. Are they really interested in arts? Now this is direct. It becomes the teacher questioned whether they were really interested in arts. Whether or not, this phrase, it can be used as a phrase, but not if or not. Okay? For example, did Madrid win or not? It becomes, I asked whether or not Madrid won. Or, I asked whether Madrid won or not. Or, I asked if Madrid won or not. Okay? So whether or not here in the first example, which is I asked whether or not Madrid won, it can be used as a phrase, but not in the second sentence, which is I asked whether or if Madrid won or not. Here we reached the end of our lesson. I hope that you learned something and thank you for listening.